At 36 minutes past the hour of 8, and you're just in time for yet again another interesting and exciting topic here on Our Views. Well, it's not so exciting, but this is a conversation that it has come just at the right time to actually have it. And joining me are the ladies, and I have Sarah, I have Kira, and of course I have Sandra. Well, ladies, this morning we're going to be discussing alcohol and substance abuse. And just to give you a preamble of where all this is coming from, alcohol and substance abuse and mental health are actually major public health issues worldwide. But in Uganda alone, it is estimated that 10% of the population are dependent and are regular users, while 18% of the men are less than 2% of the women both smoke and drink. Other drugs of abuse, of course, include cannabis, which grows widely in the green climate of Uganda, and abuse is common, especially among the young urban elites. And in relation to that, actually 30% of the hospitals in Uganda are having challenges, especially when it comes to dealing with people that are having drug abuse, alcohol abuse, you know, just basically being addicted to these sort of substances. And this particular one should be running on your screen, and I just want to break down what drug abuse is and what being addicted to a drug means, so that we are able to actually dissect this conversation. So definition of drug abuse is actually the excessive use of psychoactive drugs such as alcohol, pain medications, or illegal drugs, and it can lead to physical, social, and emotional harm. While drug addiction is also called substance use disorder, is a disease that affects a person's brain and behavior and leads to an inability to control the use of the legal or illegal drug or medication. Substances such as alcohol, marijuana, nicotine are also considered as drugs. So ladies, what do you think are the causes of this particular epidemic? Because we're having this conversation today, but drug and alcohol abuse has been something that has happened over and over and over again, to the extent that we're losing even the most famous people that we have in the country because of drug and alcohol abuse.
I think drug and alcohol abuse is a symptom of a much bigger underlying issue, because a lot of people resort to drug and alcohol abuse when they are battling with something else. It could be depression, it could be anxiety, it could be low self-esteem, it could be the fact that you're what's the word?
Even sad.
You're sad, you're heartbroken, whatever the reason may be. You may be overwhelmed or stressed. I think that is where it stems from. So it starts with one drink or one puff, and next thing you know, it is out of control, and you're spiraling out of control when you have not addressed your underlying issues.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Sarah.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Sarah. And I think there can be also two extremes, yeah? Like you can be depressed and you can be at this particular place, and it's a means of escape for you, yeah? But I also think, like, I have seen some people that I know, and they come from very well-to-do families and everything, and I think they just do it out of boredom.
I don't think so.
Boredom?
Yes, or peer pressure.
No,
like when you have everything, you have everything.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to go to work. So like you said, the idle mind is a devil's workshop. So you just start experimenting here and there, and like from school, not even as adults. Yes, it could be another underlying issue, maybe low self-esteem, and you don't know. Maybe you look at this kid and you think, oh my gosh, they have everything. Why don't they have it together? But yes, it could be also an issue that they have other underlying issues.
What you're saying does make sense, because statistics in the Western countries, almost 80% of the teenagers or the youth that are actually involved in drug abuse and alcohol intake are kids of well-off people. So I'm wondering, people who have made it in life, children who have what their parents have. I mean, anything you ask for is given to you at a silver platter. Why are you again getting involved in
this? Is the thing. There's the issue of peer pressure. Okay, you want to fit in with the crowd, so you do what your friends are doing. That is one reason. You may not have any problems, but you may not have any really big problems, and I say that in court, and you just want to fit in, and then one path leads to another, and now you are an addict. But see, this is the thing with children that come from well-to-do families. to make that, for their parents to make that money means that the parents put in a lot of hours into working. And many times these children are not even raised by their parents. They are raised by house helps, nannies, butlers, somebody else, and not their parents. And when this happens, children grow up feeling neglected.
Yeah.
So they are trying to fill that void of neglect. I want my parents around. Yeah, I have everything. We have had people say money is not everything. And there's people who have money say that that money is not everything. Because it is not. Because for them, their immediate need is a connection, is to feel loved, is to feel, nurtured, wanted and appreciated. So they resort to drugs and alcohol to cope with that. Because the thing about drugs and alcohol, it makes you feel good. Everything, if you may, before you take your sip of alcohol, you may be feeling down, and upset and depressed. After just, a few shots, it doesn't matter. And that is why people resort to these alcohols, because it's a quick fix. It makes you feel good about yourself. It makes all your problems seem very trivial.
And I think the other reason as to why people tend to resort to drug and alcohol use, I would say, is background. Some kids grow up seeing or watching their father drink constantly. You come back home and dad is beating mom, or dad is drunk literally every day. So a child grows up thinking, oh, this is actually a normal thing. And those are the kids you realize people you meet, and they will tell you, I've been drinking for 20, 30 years. And you ask yourself, why? Why are you doing this? But it's all kind of stems to the people you surround yourself with and the family. So upbringing or the people around you definitely play a role when it comes to drug and alcohol use.
Let's take a look at the stigma when it comes. Different people, artists, celebrities that we know or that you do not know, have come out to actually say that they have been perpetrators of drug and alcohol abuse. Among them is Cindy. We have had Jackie Chandiru. I don't know. We have Kennedy Ziwa, who is here by Ziwa. We have had His Excellency Chagulanyi. Of course, that was his past, but he did recover. And very many people did come out to raise eyebrows when these people came out to say that, what, I'm struggling with this. Aren't we supposed to be encouraging people to actually come up and talk about these things instead of actually throwing stones at them?
Of course. I think we should create an environment where people feel free to talk about it and not to be judged.
Isn't that encouraging them to do it again?
No, it's having candid conversations. But I think also why people fear to come out is because, there are those other drugs, cocaine, heroin, and all this. And it's happening here in Kampala. So when people come out to talk about it, the people who are selling this stuff in the back streets don't like that, because if you just use the trail, then it's going to get back to them. So I think this is one of the reasons that people fear to come out, because then you'd have to say, well, what do they call it? Your supplier is, or things like that, and then it just goes back and trickles down to the person who is doing this business. So I think out of fear as well of what would happen, the unknown. People fear for their lives and don't.
For me, it's two things. Number one, there's this. We Africans need to stop. We Africans, as Ugandans, need to stop with the mentality that everything bad is a demon possession. Because some people will say, oh, you are a drug addict, or you are addicted to alcohol.
Oh, it's a generational curse.
It's a generational curse. Pray about it, pray about it, pray about it. And yet somebody just needs to talk about it. I just want to talk about it. I am sad because my father left. Talk to me. I am sad because my mother raised me telling me I'm not good enough. I want to talk about it. I don't want to pray about it. Allow people to talk about it. And a lot of these problems will actually go away. Number two, the levels of poverty around the world are really high. And this leads people to actually, one, misusing drugs. And now when people are misusing drugs, there is a demand. And with a demand, there's going to be a supply. So we need to also address the issue of poverty.
But even while talking about poverty, because even while I was reading, a marijuana cigarette or even just a normal cigarette that has weed in it, a weed cigarette costs from depending on your supplier, could cost between 15 or 10,000. So if you're talking about poverty,
it costs from as low as
1,000
shillings,
shillings.
between 1,000 to 2,000 shillings.
Yep.
Not 15K, baby girl.
Well, it depends on
What
your
are you
supply.
buying?
Even 100. Even 100.
People are even now.
They live for that, you know.
Uh-huh.
They live to be on the edge, you know. It gives them a level of satisfaction, you know.
An escape.
Yes, an escape bit of it. And I love. Yesterday, when I was actually watching news, an incident did happen, you know, in regards to something similar to this. And as much as you say that celebrities shouldn't actually criticize people and that, I love the fact that people actually came out and said, we need to support each other, you know. We shouldn't criticize someone just because this is actually happening, yeah? Sit down, talk to someone, figure out why this is happening in the first place, because you never know, yeah? Today it may be you because today it may be this person, and the next day it's actually because no one actually wakes up and says, you know what, I want to be an addict. No one wakes up. Yeah,
Exactly.
so we need to figure out where this stems from, yeah, and work towards the solution.
But how are you able to tell that you're slowly becoming addicted to a particular drug? Because
you
it may
can't
not be
live-
the weed, it
if
may
you
not
can't
be
do-
a nicotine, it may be probably you're now getting addicted to pain relievers constantly. You're taking pain medicines even for pain that you probably do not have. So how are you able to know that you know what, Siobhan? You're actually becoming
If you
addicted.
can't live
cope.
without, yes.
If you can't cope without it,
Yes.
like someone will tell you, I need to smoke a joint in the morning to be able to operate. You know those, what do they call them? Functional junkies.
Yes.
So they have their spliff in the morning, then they go to work. But
Yeah.
without it, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
Or they need to like have a beer, even at lunchtime. They'll go have a beer so that they come back to work. Without it, they can't manage. They can't deal. They can't go through the day without it. And I'd like to echo what you said, Sarah, that alcohol abuse and substance abuse is a symptom of a much bigger problem. Yeah, like poverty, like you said, and it creates demand and supply.
Yes.
And there's this thing that I read somewhere, and it really stuck with me. It said that you can't get better where you feel sick. Yeah. So if you are not loving your surrounding, you're poor, you don't have a job, you can't get better from there. So you will just keep on taking the drugs and everything until that situation is changed.
True.
Until you make efforts to change that situation, because if you change the situation, it will no longer stress you anymore. So you'll be in a better space physically and mentally.
True.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that really helps, and talking about it as well.
Yeah.
If something is bothering you, talking about it. And there was this instance, this church, which I won't mention, this person had a drug problem, and they went, they were trying to remove the exorcism. So the guy said, I'm healed and everything, yada, yada, yada. A few months later, the guy was back to square
But
one.
I think it takes time. It takes time to
does.
get
Of course.
on the right track. Of course, later on we shall be diving into how best we can break this vice. But in relation to what actually Sandra has hit on, I'm going to be reading you some symptoms or how you can know that you are slowly becoming a drug addict. Of course, that is just for more emphasis, and that should be running on your screen. So the first one is feeling that you have to use the drug regularly, daily, or even several times a day. And that is what Sandra did hint on. Then having intense urges for the drug that block out any other thoughts. So constantly you're actually thinking about having the drug, and you're just not thinking about any other thing. You're constantly thinking about a cigarette, you're constantly thinking about having that bottle of whiskey and alcohol. Then you know that you're slowly becoming an addict. Over time, needing more of the drug to get the same effect, taking larger amounts of the drug over a longer period of time than intended, making certain that you maintain a supply of the drug, like you constantly have your supplier on standby, spending money on the drug even though you cannot afford it, and this is actually very true, not meeting obligations and work responsibilities, or cutting back on social and recreational activities because of drug abuse. You prefer to stay at home instead of going out with your colleagues. Why? Because you know you have a joint with you, and continuing to use the drug even though you know it's causing problems in your life or causing you physical and psychological damage, so psychological harm. So actually those are some of the ways that you are able to tell that you are slowly becoming an addict. Those are the symptoms. So ladies, How should we break this vice? And in Uganda, we have a few laws that I feel are not doing justice, because I was reading up on the narcotic law, and it actually imposes long prison sentences, and conviction for possession even can land you in prison for a period of 25 years. Now, if someone is going through this particular issue, is prison the right place to be going? But also we take a look at the fact that not very many people can afford rehab. It's quite expensive, especially in a country like Uganda.
This is the thing. Why long sentences are imposed on people who do drugs, or you know, sell drugs, or are in possession of drugs, is because governments are aware of the implications and the negative harm and consequences it has on the population. So why these harsh laws are placed on that is to scare people from doing it. Some countries, especially in Asia, China, some countries it's death.
It's a death sentence.
Penalty. Yes, death penalty. You don't even have to wait for your for your execution. It's almost immediate. So that is to scare people from doing this. But I would like to make one appeal, and for me this is to religious leaders. And I have made comments about religion and whatnot. It's like something is things are not always about to be prayed about. I would like for religious leaders, because congregations and a lot of people, especially here in Uganda, have so much faith in religious leaders. And I wish the religious leaders would have a more wholesome approach to people's problems, as opposed to just telling them to pray. If they would encourage people, back up your prayer with psychological help, go see a therapist, back up your problem with going to rehab, encourage people to go and actually get these steps that will help them. Because change your circles, not just tell people to pray about it and let God handle it, don't do anything about it. Let them pray, back your prayer up, and go seek the help that you need.
Well, time is not in our best interest. However, Sandra, I would like to end with you. How can we break this cycle? For someone watching this morning and they have been struggling with drug addiction, they have been struggling with alcohol abuse, how can they break the cycle? Of course, apart from rehab and talking about it.
I think also be intentional about to change your behavior and what you do every day. I talked about at some point substituting what you do. If you're going to go to a bar, maybe go do yoga or go for a run. Keep your mind busy and do things that are healthy for you, that take your mind away from the problem, but also away from that habit, but also track back and see what is really wrong, what is driving you there, and make a commitment each and every day.
What is triggering?
Yes, what is your trigger? What is it? Deal with it, because if you don't deal with that trigger, you're never going to get over that problem, because it's a symptom of a much bigger problem.
Well, so thank you so much, ladies, and that winds up the conversation that we had for you today on Our Views. However, for me, my last remarks are: one, we need to stop the stigma around people who come out and say that they have actually fallen victims of using drugs, of using alcohol, of being addicted. But also, when it comes to actually re-echoing what Sarah did say, when it comes to the religious aspect, I think it's very important that we tend to understand these people more than actually just telling them, you know what, you're demon possessed, it's a generational curse. It's probably something big than what actually meets the eye. But also it is important that when you realize that you're slowly drifting into addiction towards something, please seek help. I understand that rehabilitation centers really are not, they're not really very cheap. They're quite expensive, but get something that can actually help you. Talk to someone. We have psychotherapists, we have therapists, we have people who have just committed themselves to actually walking this journey with you. So reach out to them. Also, something that Sarah likes to say, go on Google. You're feeling this way. You want to get a joint once in a while. Go on Google and say, you know what? I feel like getting high. What else can I do? Or you can decide to say that every time you have the urge to do a certain drug or to drink alcohol constantly, replace it with something else that you also love. But also surround yourself with friends and family that love and appreciate you and will not judge you for the things that you are doing. Otherwise, thank you for being a part of this conversation.
Well, thank you for watching Sunrise at Sea this morning. We hope you had a good time, because didn't we have a good time, ladies?
Absolutely.
Well, we can continue the conversation on our social media pages at CTV Uganda. Don't forget to use the hashtag CTV Sunrise. Let's have these conversations. We want to know your views about stalking, about drug abuse and substance abuse. Are you going through this? Please come on and let us know, and let's chat about it. Otherwise, that was all for today. We will see you tomorrow, same time. Have a lovely day.